Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a journey into a really wild space, the one where ancient faith and cutting-edge neuroscience collide.
For, well, basically all of human history, people have talked about these profound spiritual experiences, right? Feelings of oneness, a connection to something bigger. But what if we could actually look inside the brain while all that is happening? What would we really see?
Okay, so let's dive right in. We're talking about a field called neurotheology. And, it sits at this fascinating and, let's be honest, often controversial intersection between hard science and, well, intangible faith.
So at its heart, neurotheology is all about using the tools of modern science. We're talking brain scans and things like that to study the biological underpinnings of our most personal, spiritual practices. It's not just neuroscience either. It pulls in psychology, anthropology, even medicine.
And you've got to understand, the vision here is huge. I mean, it's incredibly ambitious. Pioneers in the field like the neuroradiologist Andrew Newberg, they think this research could give us real insights into humanity's biggest questions, the kind of stuff once left just for philosophers and theologians to debate.
So how in the world do you capture something as personal and fleeting as a spiritual moment? Well, it takes some pretty sophisticated tech.
The two big tools of the trade are fMRI and SPECT, and they present this classic trade-off. Think of it this way. fMRI gives you this real-time movie of the brain, which is amazing, but it's also super loud and you're crammed into a tight tube. SPECT, on the other hand, is a little less precise, but, and this is key, it lets someone have their experience in a quiet, more natural setting.
And here is where SPECT really shines for this kind of work. So a tracer gets injected while someone is deep in meditation, in a quiet room. It locks in a snapshot of their brain activity at that exact peak moment. It's only after that moment is over that they're moved into the scanner, which can then reveal what their brain was up to, totally free from the distraction of the machine itself. Pretty clever, right?
Okay, so what have all these scans actually shown us? Well, across hundreds of studies, looking at everyone from Franciscan nuns in prayer to Sufis in deep meditation, some really clear patterns have started to pop up.
First up, during those moments of intense, focused practice, like deep prayer, the brain's frontal lobes just light up. This makes sense. It's our brain's executive center, the part that's directing all of our concentration. But here's where it gets really fascinating. You know that feeling people describe of losing their sense of self, where the boundaries just kind of dissolve? Well, scans showed that this feeling lines up perfectly with a quieting of the parietal lobes. That's the part of the brain that creates our sense of being a separate me in a room. When that area goes quiet, that feeling of me can start to fade away.
And it's not always about more brain activity, which is super interesting. In one study of mediums doing what's called automatic writing, researchers found there was actually less activity in the prefrontal cortex. So while their hands were scribbling out all this complex text, the parts of the brain we associate with deliberate, conscious thought were actually getting quieter.
But, for every single one of these intriguing patterns that pops up on a brain scan, there's a huge scientific and philosophical challenge that comes right along with it.
And critics are quick to point out that trying to put something like spirituality under a microscope is just riddled with problems. I mean, just because you can measure a blip of activity in the brain doesn't mean you actually understand the experience itself.
And this gets us to one of the biggest hurdles in science. Correlation is not causation. The challenges are just immense. I mean, think about it. How do you find a control group for prayer? And does seeing a part of the brain light up actually explain a divine connection, or does it just show which wires are active when someone feels like they're having one?
So, with all these problems, you might be sitting there thinking, why even bother? Why try to measure something that seems, well, unmeasurable?
Well, for one thing, it forces a conversation between two worlds that almost never speak the same language, science and spirituality. It's using brand new tools to poke at some of our oldest questions about what it even means to be human.
And then there are the practical benefits. If we can understand exactly how a seasoned meditator trains their attention, maybe we can develop better therapies for things like ADHD. If we can map the brain's circuits for calm, maybe we can help people better manage anxiety and depression. And all of this, all of it, brings us to the final, lingering mystery at the absolute heart of neurotheology, a question that science, by itself, might never, ever be able to answer.
Just think about this for a second. Our brain is the ultimate filter for reality. Every single thing you see, you feel, you think, it's all constructed by this 3-pound organ inside your skull. Which leads to one last profound question. So,
Is the brain creating these spiritual experiences from scratch? Or is it more like a radio, one that's receiving a signal from a reality that exists outside of us? Neurotheology is giving us this incredible, fascinating map of the radio. But whether it can ever tell us anything about the broadcast, well, that remains the ultimate mystery.